So, do I call for an adoption of the agenda?
Yeah.
All right, Councillor English, Councillor Nixon, all those in favor? Yeah, okay, great. That's carried. Adoption of the minutes, Councillor Nixon and our Councillor for others, sorry, yeah. Councillor Sauls, there we go. Okay, perfect, here we go. And so, Councillor Sauls, was it Councillor Sauls? Was the seconder?
Yeah.
Okay. And call the question, adoption of the minutes. All in favor? Great. And business arising from the minutes. Do I call the question first on this, or any business arising from the minutes?
You just asked if
Yeah, any business arising from the minutes
from October 16th.
from October 16th. Seeing none, I'll call for a motion. No motion for this one? Okay, here we go. All right, sure. And so next on our agenda, we're going to do public or other hearings in consideration of a third reading or adoption bylaws. We don't have anything. Announcements from the mayor, from the acting mayor, I should say. And again, I just found out I would be chairing the meeting about 10 minutes ago, so I didn't have a lot of time to think about it. But since we had the skate park grand opening today, we might as well talk about that today. As people know, that's something that I've been involved with outside of council. I have recused myself from all the conversations and whatnot that's been going on, but it is definitely an awesome community achievement. I know I'm very excited about it. It was probably about 6.5 years for me being involved in the organization, and those guys were working at it for another couple of years or so before that. But I think in the end, like, it took a little time, but it was really an example of where we are as a small community. Like, we like to sort of live in the modern world and think that everything's just going to happen and be there the next day, but it still is old school in the sense that the community really has to, when you want something, you got to get everyone together and work hard on it. And we had such a tremendous response from the community, being it from support from city staff. Ms. Donato is not here today. Individual community members, community groups to get a great amenity, and there was a big turnout today. There was lots of people there, and I know it's going to be a great facility for 30 years. So thanks to everyone, all the community groups who were involved in that. And I don't know, I didn't obviously have anything prepared, so that's it for announcements from the mayor.
Congratulate the incoming councillors and mayor.
Yes.
Oh yes, next one up. Yes, that would be another one. That was 2 days ago. We had big news here. Yeah, thank you so much. I see a few of again, congratulations on everyone who was successful, as well as everyone else who ran during the election. It's a time for renewal for the community and an opportunity for us to look forward, and as well as I think for our councillors to look back, and especially I'd like to acknowledge at the table the next mayor of Revelstoke, Gary Sauls. So congratulations. Looking forward to the next few years, and I really think Councillor Sauls, in his new capacity as mayor, is an opportunity to lead the new council and take some of the continuity and some of the wisdom that we've all learned at the table here forward. So best wishes and best of luck in that.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, so delegations and presentations. We do have a delegation from the Legion, and again, sorry, I just found out that I'd be chairing, so I didn't actually get the names of everyone who's going to be up here. Yeah, if you could introduce yourselves at the podium. Thank you so much for coming forward.
Hello everybody, I'm Ed Koski, president of the Legion. My wife Shelley, she's one of the executives. And we're here to present first copy to mayor and councillors. And seeing how we don't have a real mayor, I'm going to present one to the new one. I'll come over behind you.
Thanks, Ed. Appreciate it.
For sure.
So I don't wreck your picture.
Here we are.
Thanks so much.
She's got to edit.
Thank you. You doing the honor?
Oh yeah, for sure.
You don't book me.
No?
Thank
Yeah. Not a problem.
And I'll make a donation to the fund. Thank you so much.
Okay, perfect.
We'll have to do some.
We'll just keep going.
Gary's donating on our behalf, there we go.
There, thanks, Gary,
Thank you,
for
Gary.
donating.
Okay, we'll go on the opposite
Yes,
side.
that's right.
There we go.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much. Appreciate it.
Yes, thank you. Yeah,
And we got you your tax exemption.
I was gonna touch on that before I left.
Okay, good. Wonderful.
Thank you, guys.
Problem.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
You want a fresh one?
Got her? Thank you very much. We can leave, we can't, the general public can't actually wear them until Friday,
Yeah,
but mayor and council can wear them now.
Okay. We'll have our stuff at City Hall too. We'll have
Before I leave, especially want to thank everybody involved that's seen us get our tax exemption, because we are struggling.
yeah.
And now we're hoping that we have our elections in end of next month. Me and Shelley want to step down and take a rest. Of course. And we're hoping that we can get a new executive in to run with the ball after that. So, thank you guys very much.
Thanks very much. Appreciate it.
All right, so no recommendations from the committee, no recommendations from the committee of the whole. I'm going to move into bylaws 9A.
Worship, I'll bring that forward. Number one, that the 5-year financial plan be amended to include the Phase 1 wastewater treatment facility upgrade project.
Okay, so I have a motion and I have a seconder, and Councillor Nixon. Discussion?
Worship, this is just bringing in the financial plan to, we've got a plan to upgrade the wastewater treatment plan.
All right. Discussion, Councillor Nixon?
Your worship, why it's coming forward today is at the request of the province to make sure we have this in place so that they can consider our grant application that we sent in. So it's very important that we get this in the works.
Okay, for sure. Any further discussion? No? So I'll call the question on point 1. All those in favor? Opposed? Those are carried. All right, and section 2.
That the Phase 1 wastewater treatment facility upgrade loan authorization bylaw 2240 be read a first, second, and third time.
Seconder, Councillor Nixon. Discussion? Mike? Mr. Thomas?
Yeah, I'd just like to point out, this isn't carte blanche for the staff to go and borrow this money. This is a formality to meet the provincial requirement, as Councillor Nixon mentioned. There are definitely many considerations with this project. We will not be borrowing any money for this project until we know what the costs are, what the grant actually amounts to. We may actually need more money if we get less than almost $10 million in grant. So this is a formality, as mentioned, to meet the requirements of the grant program. We were hoping that we wouldn't have to do this because it seems like a bit of a formality, but they've asked us to complete this step. Hopefully that means that they're looking at our application seriously, so that this is actually a good thing.
Yeah, thank you. And I would, I don't know if it's been out in the public as much as it could have been, but it was 10 point, what was the?
Total cost of the first phase estimated is $13.6 million, and we're looking for a grant funding of up to 73% of that, which is just under $10 million.
Just under 10, yeah. I was just hovering right around 10.
One of the reasons for that was that with the grant program, if you applied for more than $10 million, the conditions of the grant became more onerous. And so looking at a project that was less than $20 million, but just slightly more than $10 million, we were looking at, well, if the city's showing that we're prepared to invest some money in it as well, that would probably help our chances of getting this funding.
And leveraging that ratio of funding, if we're successful, would be a tremendous success for sure. Yeah. All right, any further discussion on point 2? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries, as did number 1. Item number 10, unfinished business, there is nil. Item 11, staff reports, CAO CSRD cost sharing agreement.
I can bring that forward, Your Worship. That the agreement between the City of Revelstoke and Columbia Shuswap Regional District for cost sharing in the provision of recreation programs and facilities for the period from January 1, 2016 to December 31, 2018 be extended in accordance with Section 13 of the agreement for an additional 2 years, resulting in a revised expiry date of December 31, 2020.
Is there a seconder for that motion? Yeah. Councillor Souls, discussion? Councillor Brothers?
I think this is worthwhile extending it for a period of time to allow the next council to consider all of the repercussions of renegotiating this agreement. You know, with everything that went on with the fire issue, it's good that we step back and council has some time to deal with CSRD to figure out how they move forward with this. So I'll be supporting this.
Any further discussion? No. Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Motion carries. Item 11B.
I'm happy to bring up.
Councillor English?
That a grant in aid of $600 be awarded to the Revelstoke Crime Stoppers Association, and that the grant take the form of a credit to be used against the cost of rental at the community center for their annual No Host Bazaar fundraiser, and that such credit have no cash value.
Okay. Seconder, Councillor Nixon. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item C. I'm looking for some. Councillor Duke?
I can bring that forward, Your Worship. The policy DS-8 liquor control licensing/public review process be replaced with liquor and cannabis licensing and public review process.
Seconder? Councillor Nixon? Discussion?
Your Worship, we scheduled this one for a presentation. We've found there's been strong interest in this topic in the community, and Mr. Sturgeon can give an overview of the policy, the revised policy.
Okay.
Oh, it's simple.
An algorithm. Actually, it's excellent, though. It's really good.
All on one page.
Toss an if-then statement in there, and we're good to go.
Did the councillor read the agenda? Because there's a much longer policy.
Yeah, there is.
Well, that's good.
Just a quick overview here. So now that we have all the bylaws that regulate cannabis use and sales in the city adopted by council, I've done a brief update or an update to our existing liquor licensing and public review process. So as you recall, cannabis retail sales, while they're permitted in the zone, still require council to approve each and every location. So we've outlined that in the policy that's included in your agenda package as to what that would look like for applicants. It will give a little bit of detail on the application process when we would accept an application. That would be, of course, when zoning is in place and when they have the documents from the province ready to go. We've identified that council will consider every location where retail sales for cannabis are proposed, and in every instance where local government is required to comment. So the province does give local governments the option to delegate that decision-making to staff. We're not suggesting that that happen at this time. So whenever local government is asked to comment, it will come to council for consideration. Part of that consideration is going to be council taking account of comments from the surrounding neighbors. This is where policy comes into play, and we specify what our policy is and how we gather that comment from neighbors. So we're following suit with what we do for most other zoning and variances and existing liquor, which is to hand deliver or mail to properties within 100 meters and offer those tenants or owners the opportunity to write or visit City Hall and give us something of their opinion if they have one. And then we summarize that in a report to council, and we follow the format that the province gives to us. So that's taking into account the operating hours, the noise, the impact on neighboring properties. I haven't put that criteria in the policy because it tends to change, and so this way we can just reference the provincial requirements, and as they change, we'll bring them forward to council. That guide on the right-hand side is something that we'll post on our website and make available to the public. Right now, I've got 2 meetings scheduled with some folks that are interested in opening retail stores, and one other email sitting in my inbox to deal with, so this will come in handy. That's it.
Councilor Duke? Yeah, thank you, Worship. And I made light of this slide, but this is kudos to the staff on this one and Mr. Sturgeon, because we are ahead of many other communities in British Columbia on this, and that's not from a lack of luck. That is because your department has really tried to get this out ahead of the October 17th deadline. And also, this graph and chart of the flow of getting an application is something that this council's been asking for from the Development Services Department for a long time. And this is nice to see. This is the exact direction that we've been giving. So
Kudos. Yeah.
Thank you.
And next was Councilor Brothers, and then Councilor Nixon.
Yeah, I just thought, I really like the fact that you've kept the decision-making with council as opposed to staff for no other reason except there were some concerns that were raised last time, and a little, I mean, it's new legislation, and so people don't know what's going to happen, and there were some serious concerns raised about people who are on the commercial fringe area, making sure that it doesn't get into residential areas, and I think this is a real comfort level, the way it's set up, that you know, for the community, that yes, that will, you know, everything will be taken into consideration if someone comes forward and wants to do something. So I really think this is a great thing.
Just to clarify too, it's council's discretion as to whether that decision making is delegated to staff. So if the future council decides that for whatever reason there's one particular type of cannabis application that, let's say someone had an existing store and they wanted to expand the size of the store, and that required input. We decided, you know, this is an onerous process. Council has the option to delegate that to staff, but we would have to bring that in a report too.
Councilor Nixon?
Yeah, Daniel, thanks for bringing this forward. It just shows that we were listening when we had the public hearing here and responded to the concerns. And I know how busy you are and that you turned around and got this right back to us. So kudos to you and your staff for that.
Any further discussion? No. All right, seeing none on item C, point 1 of C, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Those opposed? Carries unanimously. And then we'll move to C2.
Yes, thanks, Your Worship. That it be council policy to ensure the community input be obtained in respect to certain liquor and cannabis licenses as identified in City Policy DS-8, liquor and cannabis licensing and public review process.
Seconder, Councilor English. Discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carries. No? Okay. And we'll move to item D. This is Development Services, 1944 Laidlaw Road Temporary Use Permit. Presentation first. Okay. Great.
Thank you. Just a little location overview here. We're immediately west of the existing resort in what we call the Thomas Brook area. I've identified the property there on the screen. Because this area was annexed in from the CSRD, we're not up to date on our mapping here, so it doesn't really show the roads or the road names, but that's the Langford project. There's an aerial view to get a sense of the location. Again, here's Airport Road, and these are the hangars over here, and the existing RMR parking lot. And just so you can get a lay of the land, everyone knows that the ski hill is on a hill, but this property is sitting right on that top embankment there, dropping off to Williamson Lake. And as I mentioned, it was was annexed in from the CSRD, so we're still operating under their bylaws. So when we annex lands, we effectively adopt the bylaws that regulate those lands. So that's been that way for 2 years now. So we're operating under an OCP that was developed with community input from this area, but it was developed by the CSRD. It's now our bylaw. So I've covered that off. Temporary use permits is not something that we see very often. It's effectively a mechanism by which local government can vary the use of land. So typically when we bring development variance permits to you, we're varying height, we're varying setbacks. We're never varying density, we're never varying use because the local government access, we can't do that. But a temporary use permit is, I wouldn't call it a workaround, it's a different tool that you can use to vary the use of land by saying, excuse me, temporarily you can operate this particular use. So that is the mechanism by which I'll back up there. Those can be issued for 3 years by council, and then they can be renewed once for a total of 6 years. Once that 6 years expires, an applicant has to come in and then reapply for a new temporary use permit. Common uses for these are things like real estate sales centers. That's a commercial use in an otherwise residential area. Industrial operations, like a rock crushing operation in an area that wouldn't normally permit that, or a processing plant for something that was temporary. The CSRD has used temporary use permits to authorize vacation rentals. That's been their way. Not something we did here, but they're still doing it. We in fact have a referral for another one right now. In this case, the definition that they've applied to this land is what's called a lodge. So we use the term vacation rental, the CSRD uses the term lodge. They offer whole building nightly rentals, and it's operating right now as the Whiteworth Chalet. So it's very upscale oriented towards the heli crowd. It's not single bedrooms, it's the entire operation, and it comes with a number of amenities, an on-site chef, and I think there's a spa on site and a hot tub and so on. The existing permit expires in 2019, but due to the nature of this site, they're booking their guests up to a year in advance. This is an expensive upscale operation, and people are booking their flights and coming from out of country, or if not cross country. So with that said, if they're looking to book for next Christmas, they wouldn't be able to do that with any certainty, so they've looked to extend this permit now for another 3 years, so they can continue on with their operation. It's anticipated that our OCP update, which ideally we would begin soon, will address the future land use of this area. So the temporary use permit, while it might not be something that the city normally does, given that it's in effect now, it's reasonable to continue that until we bring certainty to this neighborhood. As far as the existing operation, there's been no concerns raised with it, and just by that nature there's no justification to not renew. That's a double negative. So I'm saying that there's no reason why we would not continue on with this. I see no reason there. So a 3-year extension would give them until 2021, and at that point we would engage the neighborhood around this area, look at what the future of these lands look like, and I'm certain that these owners would be looking to solidify this operation in the future. And with that, I'll open it up to questions.
Any questions for Councilor? Councilor Nixon? Brothers, all right?
Mr. Surgeon, I think this is a very smart way of dealing with this. It gives, I understand that, they want some certainty for their business, and they're a viable business here, and they bring a lot of people into the community, and so it's a good operation. They don't have any complaints, and I think this gives us an opportunity as a city, the next council, to figure out what they want to do with Thomas Brooks. And that land use there. So I think it's a win-win for both sides, the city and this enterprise. So I think it's a good thing to do.
I'll squeeze the motion on the table, Your Worship.
Just before we go forward, could we get a motion on the table first, and then go to discussion?
The temporary use permit number 850-8 be extended for a period of 3 years commencing on October 23rd, 2018.
Seconder, Councilor English. Councilor Duke, you were going to...
Nope.
No, okay.
I was just saying I put motion.
Okay. Any further discussion? Councilor Souls?
Your Worship, I think I'll echo what Councilor Brothers has said. This is a great facility for our community. I'm very supportive of us going forward under this temporary use permit. had conversation with Mr. Sturgeon regarding this, and as we go forward with the new council, we'll be able to deal with that neighborhood at some point. But in the meantime, this just assures these people that they can keep their operation flowing, and they've been a great corporate citizen, so I definitely encourage everyone to support this.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? None, so the motion carries. Next up is correspondence. There's nil, and does anyone have anything that they would want to point out from communications? Item 13A, the RCMP Community Policing Report. Councilor English?
I just want to thank Staff Sergeant Grabitsky for the great job he's done communicating with us over the last 4 years. Really appreciate it. I look forward to seeing the reports coming to the new council.
All right, next, any questions from the press? Jocelyn, you're the only one back there today? No, okay, thank you. Seeing none, I'll make actually, do I call the motion to go to in camera? Is that?
Can you go to make a motion?
Yeah.
Before we go in camera,
Sure.
can I just make one statement?
Sure.
So, just for the public, as they're aware, this is the last meeting of this council. Been over 4 years for us, and I just want to thank my fellow councilors for everything that you've done and what you've taught me and the community in the last 4 years. And I want to express my thanks to the staff for all that you've done. You've kind of shepherded us through, and sometimes it's like herding cats. So we appreciate all that you've done, and I'm looking forward to working with you as we go forward. So definitely my compliments and my thanks for everything that we've been able to accomplish during the last 4 years. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Councillor Sauls. And again, I did find out just recently that I'd be chairing the meeting today. So had I known yesterday, I would have a large statement, but I'd like to echo the expression of gratitude as well from myself as a councillor and all of council for everyone, staff, fellow councillors, and everyone in the community who's worked to complete a lot of achievements, as the mayor has been highlighting lately over the past 4 years. It's been a great experience.
Echoed by all of us.
Yeah. So, next up is in camera. I'm seeking a motion to go in camera pursuant to sections 90.1A and G of the Community Charter. So, Councillor English, Councillor Brothers. I usually sit on the other side, so left and right's here. Okay, so I need a motion and a seconder. We got those. All those in favor? All right, thank you. So we'll proceed to in camera. Thank you.
Good one.